In the year 1720, the whole of Iran was shaken by an Afghan uprising led by Mir al-Mahmudi. Safavid Iran was on the brink of collapse. The political situation in the region further intensified when in 1722 Mir Mahmud managed to capture the capital Isfahan and dethrone Shah Sultan Hussein. The oppressed people saw armed struggle as the solution to escape the increasing arbitrariness and violence. The Armenians did not remain uninvolved either. Taking advantage of the difficult situation in Iran and encouraged by the prospect of armed help from Russia, they took steps to shake off foreign rule. A significant political program was being developed, for the implementation of which, at the initiative of Stepan Shahumyan and at the request of the Armenian leaders of Shunik, the Armenian commander Davit Bek was sent from Georgia to Shunik. For the 2,000-strong army and 20 captains reaching Sisian, Davit Bek set out to form the Armenian army. As a result of the mobilization, around 4,000 soldiers were recruited. To establish a stable material and military base, numerous fortifications were built or renovated in the process. All around Davit Bek, armed men were gathering from all parts of the province drawn by his reputation, who were oppressed and suffered from the bitter service of foreigners, men who dedicated themselves to freeing from the foreign yoke, and one of whom pursued hundreds, two pursued thousands. Lucas from Sebastia, Davit Bek, or the history of the people of Kapan. The first major clash occurred with the superior forces of the Khan of Nakhichevan, after which Davit Bek changed his tactics by applying irregular warfare, with rapid night raids, ambushes, traps, and so on, skillfully combining cavalry and infantry. The result was not long in coming. Davit Bek delivered devastating blows to the military strongholds of the Karachoglu and Givanshir tribes, which were foreign rulers. The Battle of Yereblur was particularly impressive, where it was possible to crush the 16,000-strong army of the 32 tribes of Givanshir, with just about 400 fighters after 3 days of fighting. After those victories, the Armenian Meliks and Tanudars, who were still hesitant, joined Davit Bek with their troops. During this period, Davit Bek temporarily settled in Shinuher, but when the military operations focused heavily on Kapan, first he moved to Tatev, and then made Halidzor his base. Then the fight flared up around the fortresses of Zava and Vorotan, which the Armenian fighters captured after persistent siege battles. At that time, the people of Artsakh also came to Davit Bek's aid. Thus, by the end of the year 1723, almost all the armed detachments of Siyunik had united into one army and recognized Davit Bek as their overall commander and leader. A purely Armenian principality was created. The movement was so influential that people were hurrying to Siyunik even from Poland and Crimea. However, soon the overall situation in the region changed drastically when the Ottoman Empire attacked Armenia and Georgia. The situation worsened in the spring of 1726. After conquering Tbilisi, Yerevan, and Ganzak, the Ottoman forces, aiming to seize the main trade route of the region, occupied the areas near Nakhichevan and Kapan. The promised Russian assistance never reached Armenia. Moreover, with the Russian-Ottoman Constantinople Treaty of June 12, 1724, Transcaucasia and the northern Iranian lands were passed to the Ottoman Empire. The Armenians were left alone. Despite this, Davit Bek, Mkhitar Sparapet, and the relatively small forces of Armenian volunteers continued to fight, retreating in front of the enemy's superior forces in the spring of 1727. Davit Bek and a few of his loyal comrades fortified themselves in the fortress of Halidzor and was regrouping its forces, preparing for the decisive battle. 7 days after the siege battles, the enemy not only failed to penetrate the fortress, but also, unaware of the sudden counterattack by the Armenian soldiers, fled the battlefield in panic. A surprise attack was launched outside the walls under the leadership of Mkhitar Sparapet and Teravetis. Their call to the Armenian soldiers was extremely impactful. "Be brave, do not fear, follow us. If our end has come, die bravely, because it is better for us to die outside the walls of bravery than to see our families, our friends' deaths, and other misfortunes before our eyes here." Lucas from Sebastia, Davit Bek, or the history of the people of Kapan. The Turks lost 13,000 soldiers, 143 battle flags, huge amounts of arms and supplies in Halidzor. The victory of Halidzor was one of the largest victories against the Ottoman army. It changed the course of the military operations. The Armenian-Iranian conflict turned into the Armenian-Ottoman conflict. This was followed by the victory at Megri. After that, Contact was made with Shah Tahmasp II in Atropatene at the initiative of Davit Bek. With the proposal to jointly organize the anti-Ottoman movement, he recognized the authority of Davit Bek in the Shunak region with his special decree, as well as in Garadagh on the left bank of the Iraqs, and even in Nakhichevan on the western side of the Zangezur Mountains, allowing the minting of coins. But this achievement was not long-lasting. After Davit Bek's sudden death, the strategy of relying on one's own strength took a back seat, and either Russian, Iranian, or Ottoman support-seeking forces became active, which soon led to the rebel forces splitting. Nevertheless, summarizing the achievements of the liberation movement of Shunak, we can say that in the 1720s, the Armenian insurrection moved out of the planning and self-defense phases, transforming into a well-organized and stable military movement.